Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well this Monday. Julie, how are you this Monday afternoon? Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
We hear you.
Good, good. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, I hope you're doing well this Monday afternoon. Julie, how are you doing this afternoon? I don't know if Julie's got her mic muted. Last time we were all together, I had a pretty rough cold, and I know that Julie was struggling the end of last week with a cold as well. So I hope you're doing well this afternoon, Julie. We want to get started. We have a great couple of special guests this afternoon. Carla Wade and Sue Kaiser are going to be with us to talk about Education 101 for the VR professional. And just to go through a couple of things quickly, just before we get started, I do want to apologize. We're having some technical issues on our end in Warm Springs with my laptop this afternoon. So we're only going to be able to be in this mode for viewing. So I apologize to you that we don't have a full screen this afternoon. Some updates. I want to continue to thank everyone for the hard work with the local level planning that's been taking place across the state. We continue to work on the transition guide for the VR professional, which will be a desktop work aid. We have actually hit a pause on this project as we've been made aware of an update by Alliance, which adds an education page to the aware screen. And we want to look at the opportunities through using this education page for us to gather a bit more information specific to districts and high schools. And so we'll hopefully have more information for you very soon as the education guide for AWARE has been provided by Alliance. Julie, are you able to hear me yet? Julie may still not have joined us. She participated in an AWARE training that took place actually 2 weeks ago today. She left our transition talk to join the AWARE meeting. And so, Julie, I don't know if there's anything you might want to share from that meeting. I mentioned the education page updates that we want to include in the transition guide. Is there anything else that you can think of this afternoon?
No, there's not, Lee.
We will have more information about that education page. Just got the information from Alliance last week on that change upgrade within AWARE. So we'll have more information to come soon on that front. The transition website is making great strides. We're now working with Robin Folsom, and we really have a solid blueprint in mind now for how that website will look. So hopefully very soon we'll be able to showcase some of the early phases of the website. I added this time a resource with a star that has our blue color to it. And this is a resource for career and job exploration that's totally free, and it's called Childhood Meets Adulthood. And it is a tool that allows young adults to think about what they want to do with their future. It's pretty cool when you go to the website. It would be particularly appropriate for young adults that would be able to do exploration more independently and then be able to report back out to their VR counselor or VR professional. It'd be great to work if you're going out to do pre-ETS in the schools and you're working with a classroom of students who may be pondering what the post-secondary option for them may be whether it going to tech school or on to college, this might be a really nice tool to use, and then let the students talk in a group about their experiences using childhood meets adulthood. We try to add little tidbits along the way that are resources that are cost effective, or in this case, no cost at all. Julie and I are very excited today to have Sue Kaiser and Carla Wade. They're two of our education program specialists. Sue specializes in the IPSY programs and has just a stellar career working with young adults with disabilities, particularly those on the autism spectrum. And also Carla Wade, who is our lead education program specialist, and she is currently overseeing the 5th year of the Career Pathways Grant, and works in a variety of capacities along with Sue. They, with our other 3 teachers, have formed our Special Forces team, and they're all over the state providing technical assistance, and actually in some of our areas of our state actually providing pre-ETS activities. This afternoon we've got a full hour ahead, so without further ado, I'm going to pass host opportunity function over to Sue, and we will begin the presentation. So just bear with me one second while we make this trade-off, and we'll begin their presentation. And Sue, I'm turning the host duties over to you as we speak.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lee, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Makes me feel really good. Makes Carla and I both feel really good. Today, we're going to work on making things just a little bit different. Go to that slide. Oh, we're having little technical difficulties here. Hang on just a second. We need the Ava slide. Uh-oh.
Lee, we're still on your screen.
Can we get on our screen?
Yeah, you want to use your original one?
That's yeah. That's fine.
Why don't you go ahead and switch the screen, or if you want me to fast forward them on for you, that's fine too. Whichever one you think would be the best.
We're still on your screen.
Oh,
yep.
I can change them for you since we looks like we're having a little technical issue.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay,
If you could go to Ava Grace.
I'll be happy to.
Okay, and so what I'll just say is click when it's time to change. How about that? Will you?
And I will be your trusted servant through this.
All right. I love this teamwork. Okay, so we want to make this training a personalized experience in keeping with GVRA's focus on the client. We want to tell the story through the eyes of the client. Ava Grace, a fictional character, like on Law and Order, any resemblance to persons either living or dead is coincidental. I will be playing the role of Ava Grace. All right, so hi, my name is Ava Grace, and I am attending high school in the Hall County area. Click. All right. I would like to share my story with the audience. My VR counselor suggested I advocate for myself, so let's see how this is going to work. I am a junior. I'm on track to graduate with a general ed diploma. I experienced learning disabilities in reading comp, written expression, math calculation, and let's throw in some ADD also. My psych was updated the summer after my sophomore year. I am in co-taught classes and have some small group. My accommodations on my IEP include test read 2 and then extended time on assignments and tests.
So did you know, this is Carla, did you know that a 504 plan can give similar accommodations? Now, 504 plans are based on medical diagnoses like a seizure disorder or diabetes. So the way that those things can impact access to education. Ava Grace has an IEP because her needs are deeper. Next slide, please.
Okay, during my freshman year, I had this crazy idea that I wanted to be a rapper. I'm pretty good at rapping and had aspirations of becoming very popular and making lots of money. I thought of all those rappers I see on TV and in concert had pretty exciting lives and really just toured around having a blast. I did not realize there was more to it than just looking and sounding good. I first met you, my counselor, when you came to my career class in the fall as a guest speaker. You talked about these things called soft skills, like being on time and being a team player. Then, during the summer, I attended a career experience week and toured the hospital. I couldn't find any tours for rappers. This changed my life. I didn't know until afterwards that you helped organize this. I want to thank you for that. One of my favorite jobs I saw was how the technician in the X-ray lab got to work with people. I thought about becoming an X-ray technician. They must make a lot of money. My Aunt Bessie is one, and she drives a white VW convertible. Change.
So the Georgia Department of Education recognizes these career clusters based on employment available throughout the state. Within each cluster are several pathways, a sequence of 3 classes that can result in an industry credential. These are vocational classes within the typical high school curriculum. Not all high schools offer every pathway. But for Ava Grace, her wake-up call after the counselor talked about soft skills led her to the health sciences cluster. Next slide. Ava Grace's special ed case manager worked with the high school counselor to choose the patient care pathway for Ava Grace. You see the 3 courses she would take there: Introduction to Healthcare Science, Essentials of Healthcare, and Patient Care Fundamentals. When she completes these 3, she will be a pathway completer, and she may be able to sit for an industry credentialing exam. The VR counselor shared feedback from Ava Grace's summer experience. This was very helpful to her school counselor. Next slide, please.
Okay, I had matured just a little bit by my sophomore year. You came and spoke to our class about self-advocacy. I had never really thought about speaking up for myself. My parents were always the ones who spoke for me. You made me realize I needed to speak for myself, especially to speak about the things I'm good at and how, even though I have disabilities, there are so many things I'm good at. You suggested I take healthcare science during my spring semester. This is the best class I have ever taken. I never thought it would feel so good to talk about helping other people besides myself. During the summer, I volunteered at the hospital. Not only was it enlightening, but I was lucky enough to meet some pretty interesting people, not to mention some very cute doctors. Next. My junior year started off a little stressful. Teachers were telling us we needed to decide on what we would do after graduation. I am only a junior, so why is everyone getting so worked up? You came and talked about options after graduation. I'd never really thought about it. Wow, I could go to technical school and do what I love doing and make money? During my junior year, I took the other 2 classes from the health science pathway. They were not really easy courses, but I enjoyed both, and I saw the purpose of taking the class. I really appreciated your guidance when, after my freak out, when I looked at Lanier Tech X-ray technician courses, whoo, those are such hard classes. You suggested I check out the Certified Nursing Assistance Program. This was perfect for me. You have really stuck with me these past few years. I want to invite you to my IEP. Next. I'm hoping I didn't scare you when I invited you. Let me give you a little background. You must be invited, which means you can't just walk in without an invitation. This is a very important meeting. we're going to discuss my future, so please make every effort to attend and stay the entire time. I need the entire IEP team to work together to help me with my future. We did some assessments during the summer. Could you bring those with you so you can share the outcomes? The teachers usually send out a draft 10 days before the IEP. Would you like a copy so you can see how the process will flow? Next.
So in a perfect world, this would have been a quiz slide. Sue and I are teachers, and of course we're going to give you a quiz. Fortunately for you, you get to see the answer to this particular quiz. The question is, which of these definitions applies to the word draft used in this context? A breeze from an open window. B, an invitation to join the Army during wartime. Or C, a document that is still being developed. In this context, we're talking about a document that is still being developed, an IEP draft. Next slide.
Just an FYI, the IEP is not considered final until after the meeting. People want to update the goals and provide information during the IEP. The final button will be pushed at the end. So please speak freely and clearly so we all understand. Next, please. Many people will be attending the IEP. Oh, don't let that scare you. They are all here to support me. Sometimes parents invite an advocate to help with the IEP meeting. Don't let that scare you either. But please be nice, just like you always are. We are all on the same side. Next slide, please. During the meeting, teachers will use the term least restrictive environment. This refers to the classroom that I am in. You already know that I am in a co-taught class. This is where we have the click, and you'll see where the combination of regular classroom is in red, which means there are 2 teachers in there, and I am pulled out for extra support and accommodations for my academics. This works well for me. Some of my other friends are in a small group most of the day. They're a little bit embarrassed about this, but they are getting the instruction they need by having other teachers. I hope they may be upgraded soon to my class. There are other satellite programs throughout the county that have students stay in a small group all day in a different building. I just wanted you to know that there are some different environments. Next one. Okay, there is a certain order you must follow for an IEP. Please be patient. I know you'd love to speak up for me, but we will need to follow the process. Current functioning is the part where the teachers discuss how I'm doing in my class. The new evaluation information may be the time for the psychologist to discuss any updated information. The transition plan is where I think you will be very helpful. You and I have worked together on this, and I want you to give your thoughts. This is the place that VR, for example, AWT, can be a link. I will also speak out about this because you taught me about self-advocacy. Be listening during the current functioning and new evaluation information session. You may learn something new about me that you didn't know. Click.
This slide talks about the transition plan. Now, the IEP of every student from the time they leave middle school will include a transition plan. The transition plan functions kind of like a GPS, keeping the whole team on track for the student's eventual desired destination. And like a GPS, that destination can change, be updated, and switch. Each transition plan starts with goals for life after high school. These are called post-secondary goals. They must be measurable, and the IDEA calls them desired post-secondary goals, because as we all learn more about the world, our perceptions change and our desires may change along with them. You'll remember that Ava Grace started high school wanting to be a rapper. That would have been her desired employment goal. Every student must have a desired measurable post-secondary goal in education training, and in employment. Independent living is an option as well. Sometimes you'll see a goal for that. Next slide, please. At the bottom of this slide in blue, you will see some post-secondary goals that you might see on Ava Grace's transition plan. Looks like they changed from her earlier plans, being a rapper. Now that she's experienced some of the pre-ETS services that her counselor arranged, she has more concrete plans to attend a technical school, to obtain a certificate, and to pursue employment as an X-ray technician. Next slide. After the post-secondary goals, the team will create goals that can be accomplished this year to help the student get closer to this best imagined future. Depending on the student, you may see goals in each of these areas: education, employment, community access, adult living, related services, and daily living. I've included some activities that Ava Grace's VR counselor may be able to help with. Under employment, you see applying for a part-time job and fill out 3 job applications. This could be covered in one of the group pre-ETS sessions. I want to draw your attention to related services. Y'all, this column was just made for us. VR is a related service. That means other services besides general education ones. I always like to see a goal about making and keeping appointments. Another goal you could suggest here is we'll return text messages from the VR counselor. Next slide, please. So here we have a table for you showing Ava Grace's high school plan. You'll see the years across the top: freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. They're in that kind of shrimp color. And then down along the left-hand side, headings for each role. You see a desired work goal, summer experiences, pre-ETS provided by the VR counselor, and the career pathway. The desired work goal, you see changes over time. She started out in freshman year, she wanted to be a rapper. Sophomore year, X-ray technician, same in junior year, and then senior year, we see a change there, CNA. In the summer, she did job exploration between her freshman and sophomore year, and then between sophomore and junior year, a work-based learning experience. And between junior and senior year, part-time work in the CVS drugstore. The pre-ETS that were provided by the VR counselor, in her freshman year, you came and talked about soft skills. In sophomore year, you came in and was a guest speaker for 3 sessions of self-advocacy. And then her junior year, you did a session in February on post-secondary counseling. At the bottom, we see her career pathway changed too. It started the music industry, but then she began taking those patient care classes, Intro to Health Science sophomore year, and then junior and senior year, those other 2 classes. All right, next slide. I want you to see if we can identify those 5 pre-ETS areas. Did she get all 5? Next slide. There they are. So, in for freshman year, you came 3 times to talk about soft skills, work readiness training, and then there was that job exploration, summer experience. Sophomore year, the counselor came back as a guest speaker to talk about self-advocacy. In the summer, partnership with High School High Tech led to a work-based learning experience as a hospital volunteer. And in February of her junior year, you returned to provide counseling on post-secondary options. All of these fit together with those school activities to help Ava Grace find the best way forward to her success. Next slide, please.
This is a lot more fun, you guys, when it popped up.
This was another quiz that we embedded in here. Fortunately for you, you have the answer. Why did the work goal change? So your 2 choices would have been that during your pre-ETS post-secondary counseling session, Ava Grace saw the requirements for X-ray technician and changed her mind, or Ava Grace Found information that CNAs make more money than X-ray technicians. Now, probably not the second one, definitely the first one. You gave her information about the requirements for X-ray technician, and she realized she didn't want to do all that math. Next slide, please.
I can't do math, so we said never mind.
So here's a quiz, a true or false quiz. The prompt here was to find the raise your hand button. So can everybody find the raise your hand button? It should be, if you go to the bottom of your screen, you may be able to look at participants and find the raise your hand button. You can find.
Anybody found a raise your hand button?
Oh, one person, yes.
Oh,
a lot of y'all did. Oh, y'all are so smart. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yay.
This would have been such a great thing if all right, so here's the quiz then. Okay, put your hands down if you found it. Keep frantically looking for it if you have not. Here's your true or false quiz question. True or false? Students receiving pre-ETS services are not allowed to change their career goals during junior year. Okay, raise your hand if you see that's true. Raise your hand if you think that's true. Okay, I see you. I see you. All right. Now false. Raise your hand if you think that's false. True, put your hand down.
Oh, we got such
We got a good response. And next slide will reveal. False goes, well, look, false. Students and clients can change their minds. We can all change our minds. We can all change our minds. So great. Thank you. Yay, that one quiz worked. I'm so excited. All right, next slide, please. How did this all happen? Well, we've heard a lot about pre-ETS, and they seem to have really had a positive impact on Ava Grace. Bet you're wondering, how did that counselor make it all happen? You experienced counselors know it was not by mistake. Our work since the authorization of WIOA has shown us that effective, sustainable pre-ETS requires careful planning at the local level. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a little bit about the process that you can go through to help plan for pre-ETS. Now, I'm going to tell you that educators are accustomed to participating in a process-oriented planning situation. Several meetings are going to be necessary, depending on the number of schools and students. This is a suggested model. It may work differently where you are. I encourage you to be a bit of a detective and ask a lot of questions. Find out what's already working, what their priority needs are. Maybe you'll focus on those needs first. So I want you to look in the first box that says initial meeting. So if you're starting off brand new, we want you to start at the top. Meet with a special ed director. It may be that your SAM or your team lead has already reached out to the special ed director to help make this connection. Meet and ask for an overview of transition. How is transition dealt with in this school system? And then explain pre-ETS. Talk about pre-ETS and all the areas that we are allowed to work in. And then ask for the points of contact at the school level. After the special ed director has all that information, who do they want us to talk to at the school level? And then you'll have another meeting. You will contact those people and set up a meeting with them. So next box over, meet with those designated points of contact. Again, you're going to ask for an overview of the transition services. They're going to know more about what's going on in their school, probably, than the special ed director. Again, you're going to explain the pre-ETS, and you're going to ask about priorities. And you're going to be a listener. You're really going to put your listening ears on and ask about those immediate needs and those distant desires. Maybe those are more for later planning, and the immediate needs are something you need to focus on right now. Next box over, follow up. Prepare and decide what resources already exist. Make sure all the players are invited as you plan. Collaborate, maybe that's another meeting. Get buy-in from the important school personnel. I'll mention this a couple of times. The department chair, the principal, the secretary, super important person in the school. And then the last box on this slide, checking in. After any providers that you have arranged for have done their presentations, check back in with the teachers, see if the appropriate level of instruction was offered, what kinds of accommodations and supports are available. Check to see if all the students participating have referrals on hand. And check for students who may need to transition over to becoming VR clients, students who really may need more individual services. Next slide, please. As you're planning, also remember to keep important dates in mind and to schedule appropriately. What week is testing? What week is spring break? But also ask about events and classes that are already addressing a transition that you might be able to partner with. Maybe there's a college and career fair planned. Wouldn't that be a good time for you to partner with the school to do sessions on filling out a college application or organize some mock interviews? Ask about what groups the school is most concerned about. Maybe they have a program already for their self-contained seniors, but the ones in co-taught classes could benefit from additional support. So be a detective. Ask about those transition initiatives already in place. Ask about other partnerships. Ask about those priority groups. And then ask about important details. Are those classes grouped by exceptionality? Where is that classroom or space that you can use? Who is the teacher that you'll be working with? And I should say teachers, because likely they'll want you to work with more than one group. And again, who's a secretary? Oh my goodness, this is such an important relationship. I cannot tell you. This person knows everything about the school. They can tell you where the copier is that works. They can tell you where to get coffee. They can tell you how to get in and out of the building. They will be a super good resource for you. So cultivate that person as well. Next slide, please. These might look familiar to you. I hope they do. These are the needs assessment form. They're on the left, and on the right is the Pre-ETS planning document. You should be able to find full versions of these on SharePoint. Next slide. Let's dive into that Pre-ETS planning meeting. So there's that needs assessment tool. Counselors, you can fill out one too. You can base it on what you learned from your first meeting, and you can ask for a tour and maybe fill it out again as you find out information. Then the school personnel will be filling out one also, and maybe y'all can compare yours. On this example, there are 2 areas identified as priorities. If at first your school system identifies every area as a priority, meet again. Don't continue that discussion. If it's all priorities, then get back together after your tour and say, here's what I am seeing and here's what I think we could do. Your homework will be to find resources for these. Is there a way that GVRA staff can address some of these needs? We also included, as you see at the bottom there, a not interested column. This is for your protection as much as anything else. When somebody asks, why aren't you giving us these services that the other school is getting? You can say, well, the people that we planned with indicated they weren't interested at this time. We can look at that again in further planning, maybe for next year. And you have the documentation for that right there. Okay, next slide. Now, here's a page from the planning packet. We organized it by Pre-ETS service, so that'll be easy for you to keep up with which Pre-ETS you're coordinating. each section begins by explaining that particular Pre-ETS area. And then it gives a table. You can type right into this table with columns for activity, agency responsible, and beginning and ending times. When you have a final version, distribute copies so that everybody knows what's happening. Perhaps your point of contact to help identify who should have copies, but don't forget the secretary. Be sure that the secretary has a copy too. Next slide. So these Pre-ETS planning meetings helps our agency address two of the goals that Dr. Bryan shared in the training with the SAMs and the team leads earlier this year. Here they are. One of the goals, sequence Pre-ETS through a combination of VR, LEA, and provider facilitated services. And another goal, identify and implement Pre-ETS services by VR staff that can allow us to use cost allocation methodologies towards the 15% required by RSA for the provision of Pre-ETS. Next slide. So good news. Dr. Lee referred to these earlier. Did you know the transition team has been working on ideas to bring this information to you in several different formats? We've been working on a website. We've been working on a written guidelines that'll show y'all how to capture those in Aware. And we've been working on some trainings for you. Let me give a shout out to our team, Dr. Validia King, Ms. Laura Raines, Mrs. Catherine Edger Thompson. Congratulations on your new name, Catherine. Ms. Janir Kidd, Ms. Pam Hunter Dempsey, Ms. Ingrid O'Neill, and a special shout out to Ms. Sharon Hall, who keeps us all straight. Next slide.
Okay, let's get back to my IEP meeting. Remember, this may take a few hours, so please plan accordingly. Next slide. Please remember the IEP is a legally binding document. Pre-ETS can go in the transition plan. If they are included, they must be provided. For example, if the IEP committee writes in the IEP that speech will begin in 30 days, then it has to begin in 30 days, not 34. It works the same with VR services. If VR promises class on financial literacy and does not follow through, then legal action may be taken against the school system. Keep my school system happy and keep your promises. I am counting on you. Please let me get through graduation. Change or click, okay. Please don't discuss other students during my IEP. This is all about me. And I hope you don't use my name when you're at other IEPs. I don't like everyone knowing my business. Next slide. I want to talk to you about the VR process. My friend Mary Jane, who is a year ahead of me, she told me she's a VR client. I said I was too. And MJ said, no, I wasn't. My mom got really mad. Can you please explain the process to me so I can understand it? And the rest of the team could use a tutorial also. I think I want to become a VR client. Next slide. Bring printed material if possible. Remember what we discussed before? If you promise something, it may be put on the IEP. I also need you to focus on the VR programs and let the educators talk about their programs. Stay in your lane. I may sound kind of bossy, but I am advocating for myself, and I don't want to lose you as my counselor. Next slide. I will keep my cell phone silent and in my book bag. Can you do the same? Once again, this is all about me, and I want your undivided attention. You are expected to stay the entire duration of the IEP. If there's an emergency, the IEP will table for another date. If you know ahead of time you must leave for another important meeting, which I can't think of anything more important than me, Please speak to my mom and ask if she is okay with you leaving early. I'm sure she will be, but she doesn't like surprises, and this will help us all plan. Next slide. Please bring your A game. I will try and let you know who will be attending the IEP. Next slide. Here are some reminders about the IEP. Please understand, if my mom or I do not agree with certain parts of the IEP, we have the right to disagree. If that should happen, my mom will be given a phone number to call to discuss what the next steps will be. Don't worry. I think it'll all be okay. Next slide. As I said in another slide, we may need to table the meeting and come back at another time. Please have your calendar with you so you can make sure you can be there. If all goes well and we sign and end the IEP, please check back in with me. Sometimes I get a little distracted, remember my ADD, and I forget to call you. I will try real hard to check in with you, but if you don't hear from me in a few weeks, I need you to call me or text me. By the way, this is a legal document. What is written in the IEP has to be done. That's a little scary, so please make sure you're comfortable with what you report and say. Next slide. Yippee! I signed up for VR services. It took a little bit of time and paperwork, but I qualified. I completed my senior year. I went through the proper procedures for becoming a VR client. I applied to Lanier Tech, and I received my CNA credentials. I still dress a little like a rapper now and then, but they really like me at the hospital, and they're okay with that. My case is now closed with VR because I have been successfully employed for 4 months. So please know that I can always go back and ask to reopen my case. Plus, I like to check in with you every now and then and let you know just how successful I really am. Next slide.
So here we are again with the quiz questions. I think as they come up, they will actually be seeing the answers, but try to not look at the boxes that have the answers as we go through. So let's look at that next slide. True or false? Georgia high schools must offer 3 classes in every career pathway. Okay, now look at the answer. Does it match with what your answer you had in your head? Career pathway classes will differ from high school to high school. There are so many of them, they can't all have all of them. So it's your job, your homework, to become familiar with the ones that are offered by the schools that you serve. Next slide. True or false? During the IEP, it's a good idea to provide relatable examples to explain your ideas. As often as possible, you should mention other students on your caseload by name. This is also false. Please don't do this. Maintain that confidentiality of all the other students on your caseload. Don't use names. If you need to use an example, and it is a good idea to use examples, but say another student that I work with. All right, next slide. True or false? Once you have given your information to the IEP committee, you're free to leave. Well, that's false. The IEP committee is counting on you to stay for the duration of the meeting. You may discover that you have valuable information that the committee doesn't know about the real world. You're kind of the representative of the real world on that committee. Next slide. True or false? You have dropped off the needs assessment with the principal's secretary, probably with some brownies or flowers or something, since I've told you to cultivate that relationship. Now, all you have to do is sit back and wait until they call you to come pick it up. Well, that's false. You're never going to get that back. Educators are used to being in a process-oriented procedure. Request as many meetings as it takes to come up with a plan that works for everyone. Next slide. Oh, we switched it up. Here's a multiple choice question. During the IEP, your work phone rings. It is the parent of another client, and you have been waiting on her to return this call for days. Do you, 1, take the call, 2, excuse yourself and take the call outside of the room, or 3, silence your phone before entering the meeting? That parent can leave a message. As you see there, the answer is 3. Next slide, another multiple choice question, and good news, this is the last one. You are a VR counselor and have been invited to the middle school to attend an IEP on an 8th grader. You see our 8th grader there in the top corner of the screen. Should you say, thanks, but no thanks, I only work with juniors and seniors? Should you say, that's a bit too early for me? Or should you say, could you tell me why they want me to come? Are they wanting more information about VR? Maybe we can organize a parent night where I can come and give information to all the parents. That would be a better choice. They're just wanting information. They're wanting to know, what is this VR anyway, and how can I get services from VR? Next slide, please. Okay, we are at the end of our information and invite you to send follow-up questions. Lee, next slide is our email addresses. So if you have questions, you can contact us. And now, Lee, we're going to turn it back over to you, and we're going to mute ourselves.
All righty, thank you. You all did a fabulous job. Everyone that signed on this afternoon, most everybody went into a muted mic mode. And if anybody has any questions for Sue or Carla this afternoon, feel free. We'll take a couple of minutes here, unmute your mic, and we'd love for you to ask questions that may be on your mind this afternoon. All righty, and if we don't have any questions live today, you have the information on this slide that tells you how to reach Sue and Carla. And ladies, again, you did a phenomenal job. Apologies that we had technical issues on the Warm Springs end. You all did a fabulous job putting a very detailed and fun presentation together this afternoon. And I'm sure everyone will look forward to having it available online soon. Julie, it was really a great presentation this afternoon. Any additional thoughts from your side of the world?
No, can you hear me now, Lee?
I sure can.
Great. No, thank you, Sue and Carla. It was great. I think that you provided a lot of information to our counselors, and I hope that they'll follow up with any questions that they have and get them to you. And I'm sure Lee would plan on sharing those questions and answers with the rest of you if they do come in.
Absolutely.
But I think that was some great information, and I thank you all.
Coming up on the 18th, our next session will be transition questions and answers. We'd really like to see a question from every one of the field offices. We're not going to use names. We're not going to identify offices. All the questions will be synthesized, and we will put like and kind questions together. And this session coming up on the 18th will be your first opportunity to ask questions that may be things that you've wondered about. Maybe you've heard it through the whisper game of how we do things, and you want something more formal in terms of a procedure. Anything transition related, we want to be able to answer and talk about on November the 18th. We've held open December 2nd so that if we get some topic or a topic from the questions coming in for November 18th that really is merit to have a dedicated session, we've embedded the to be determined December 2nd. And if we get a topic, we will use it there. If not, we will up the ETS versus VR eligible session, facts and strategies. We heard that even Ava Grace was frustrated, and her mom was frustrated about not really understanding where they stand as a person receiving services. There's a lot of confusion out there, and we want to talk about that, as well as just some good case management tips. So that session will either be the 2nd or the 16th, depending upon your input as we go forward. I would, before we do the shout out of our office participants, I would like to take a moment and see again if anybody has any questions.
I have one question.
And who do we have?
This is Donna Kokel. I'm from the Lafayette office.
Hey, Donna, welcome.
Thank you. Is this presentation available for us to get, to access?
It will be available on our SharePoint. It will be sent off to be transcribed, and then it will be made available. If for some reason anyone feels that they need it sooner than a week or so, we will be able to send out the Education 101 this afternoon if someone feels it would be helpful.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Because I recognize some of you are in the mode of planning, and if information provided in this presentation can be helpful immediately, we want you to have what you need. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Lee, this is Beth Williams.
Hey, Beth.
Do you want the questions coming through one point of contact, like the team lead or the SAM?
Probably so, and they can be sent to either Julie or me, or sent to both of us.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. We have 46 folks signed in this afternoon. Can we have office shout outs of how many people are participating in the different offices as groups?
This is Coming VR, and there are 2 people participating.
All righty, thank you.
Hey, this is the Milledgeville VR, and there are 3 people participating.
All righty, thank you.
This is the Gainesville office. We have 6 people participating.
Thank you. Any other groups?
The Brunswick office has 3.
Ready?
Waycross unit has 4.
Thank you.
This is Catherine in the Tifton office, and we have 5 participants.
All righty. Any other group reports?
Lee, in the Gainesville office, there's 4 that are Athens participants and 2 that are Gainesville.
All righty. So you have a blended group.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Any other group report outs? Julie, any comments before we close out this session of transition talk? Julie may have stepped away this afternoon a few minutes early, but I hope—
Here I am.
You're here.
Here I am. I'm here. Sorry.
No.
I just wanted to thank everyone for attending, and I do hope that you find these meetings every 2 weeks very educational and that they're helping you. Lee and I do look forward to getting your questions, and we, will continue to strive to make this this time well spent for you. And thank you again to Carla and Sue.
Yes, and I echo everything that Julie says, because we really want you to feel like this is your time, that we've rolled out some topics, and as we're going forward, you're seeing the topics that are in your mind, and we're going to look forward to these questions and planning for November 18th. Sue, Carla, thank you all so much. You've been great guests, and to everyone out there, have a great week, and we'll look forward to being back together on November 18th. Everyone take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.